Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Hello, welcome in. Is it Friday?
Yes, it is.
It's Friday. If you guys haven't ever been able to tell, I never know what the date is or what day of the week it is. I know if it's a game day or if it's not a game day. That's all I know. But it is Friday. Happy Friday to you all. Megan, how the hell are you on this Friday afternoon? Sun's out here in Denver.
It has been a crazy news day. It feels like I have to check my phone every few seconds to see
Yes.
what's happening tonight. This is a game day, but it feels a little bit different. It's a little bit like Christmas, and also there's a lump of coal in my stocking with the Georgiev news.
Yeah, it's today is definitely a I think that's a great analogy for it. It's Christmas Day. You got some gifts.
Yeah. Some great gifts.
You spent most of the year on the nice list, but we all know Megan definitely on the naughty list for another portion of the year. Avs getting a bunch of players back. There's another player who is going to be day-to-day out for a little bit. We'll get into all of that. Avs are welcoming in the Washington Capitals tonight, 2-ball arena, 7:00. And Megan, this is going to look like a very, very different team when they take the ice tonight. VAL, Nichushkin, Jonathan Drouin, Miles Wood, all drawing back into the lineup tonight, which means that TJ Tynan, Nikita Prishepov, Chris Wagner are out on their way back to Loveland. How I'm going to ask you the easiest low-hanging fruit question of the day. How big of a difference is having the three players the Avs are going to have tonight as opposed to the lineup that we saw just 2 nights ago?
I loved seeing on Twitter, another team had tweeted a player was returning to the lineup, and they were evaluating it like, if this was a trade and this was the return, how valuable would this be? And if this was a trade and the return was a Val Nichushkin, a Jonathan Drouin, and Miles Wood, you'd feel really good about the weight and the value of what's being added back into the lineup.
Mhm.
And it's a huge boost. It just completely the trickle-down effect in terms of the top six now has 2 real lines. And it is not a slight against the players that have been playing up alongside Casey Middlestat, but I'm so excited to see him get bona fide NHL wingers experience within the Avs systems alongside him finally. I think that's going to bring out the best in him. They're keeping that top line intact. I don't hate it. I think it just gives opportunity for Drouin and Nichushkin to help sort of carry the Middlestat line too, and all work together. He might have to be a little bit of the driver there, but it just gets so much better top to bottom for the Avs. You know, the fourth line probably a little more sheltered, but it also resembles more of a fourth line now.
Yeah, it's that's the part of it, Megan. I think you're spot on that. I'm looking at more than anything isn't just the impact that those individual players are going to have, but it's the way that you're adding. They're not all going to play together, but you're more or less adding a line back in, and it just shoves everybody down into more appropriate roles. Yes, you're still short Ross Colton, and do you still consider them to be missing Gabe Landeskog, or is that almost just kind of like you'll be adding Gabe Landeskog more than you're missing him?
I think so, because we saw a really great team last year that we knew was never going to have Landeskog in the forward group, and we felt good about their odds to push deeper in the playoffs.
Yeah.
The context of it feels a little funny bringing it up now, but you felt better about it. So to your point, I don't view it through the lens of missing Landeskog. Those are big shoes to fill. I think they've just sort of filled around it in different ways, and I think it's really complete even without him.
And so even without those 2 players, this looks like an NHL lineup. And again, like you said, I think Prishepov was great in his call-up. I think Chris Wagner scored a goal last week. I thought he was effective. I actually think there's one thing that you and I have talked about multiple times on this show. Through all of this, the Avs should feel good about what's playing in the American Hockey League right now. Like, they have They just show they're 5 call-ups deep that you feel good about. We didn't even see Jean-Luc Foudy, who was hurt at the start of the year. We haven't seen Oscar Olausson, who is maybe just proving more and more that we probably won't see Oscar Olausson. But, we didn't see some of those bigger names that you would maybe expect to be at the top of the call-up list, and you went 5 deep, and you felt really good about everything those players brought. So nothing against them. But this doesn't look like the third game of the preseason anymore with the lineup.
No, even the first few of the regular season, this team has not looked like that team that
Right.
started this year. They've resembled Avs hockey, even with the kind of depleted lineup. It's been very encouraging what they've been building over the last couple games. And I like to think, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but if they push far this year, they make it to the Stanley Cup final. I have to imagine they're going to be reflecting back onto this point in the year.
Yes.
And the guys that did step up in those roles, I think, were such a key part in whatever this results in the end. They needed to start racking up some points in the standing. That's just the bottom line, to secure a playoff spot down the line and make it so that their backs aren't totally up against a wall.
Yep.
And it meant securing some points now. And you're going to look back fondly then at the Wagners and the TJ Tynans and the Prishepovs who have stepped up, and probably not the last we've seen of them on the whole too. But I just think it's going to be a really fun storyline how they've contributed to helping this team throughout the year so early on this way.
Well, it was, I talked about it the other night after the game. I think Evan sent something out about it. Like, we've been talking about this since the start of camp, Megan. This was the goal. Can you survive? Can you survive the first month and a half, 4 to 6 weeks, and stay within striking distance of the playoffs, of the division, of, whatever. And they've done that. They did their job. Like you said, they couldn't just go out there every night and bop around. They had to stack some points. They had to find some ways to get wins. And yes, McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar have been unbelievable to start this year. Those 3 are all tied for the top 3 in points. Nathan McKinnon alone by himself, Mikko and Kale tied for 3rd. So yeah, the big guns have done their job, but they wouldn't have gotten to this point without the contributions that they got from those players that they called up. So I think you're right. If this team ends up going on any type of a run, you will look back at the 9-8 start and say they got there on the backs of a lot of their, American League guys. And that's huge. But let's get into the guys that are coming back tonight. Let's start with the big one, Val Nichushkin. Now, I do want to say we were at morning skate today. Big media contingency expecting to speak to Val. Val Nichushkin was not made available to the media. So we didn't get a chance to talk to him today. We were told that he will talk tonight after the game. We can sit here and talk about that all day long. I don't really think it's worth it. Let's just move on. We'll hear from Val tonight after Avs Caps. But we did zoom around the room and we talked to Nathan McKinnon. We talked to Cale Makar about him being back. Megan, to me, for all the talk, whether it was us, people on Twitter, fans, media, national media, guys on the radio, whatever, the conversation was, how is the team going to receive him? How is the team going to respond when Val Nichushkin is back? What does he need to do? Is this relationship soured? From everyone that we've talked to, the interactions we've seen in the room, I think this group has forgiven, and I think they're moving on, and I think they're ready to just go to war with Val in their corner. What are the senses that you've gotten from around the team? From your perspective, are you seeing the same thing that I am?
Yeah, I think the biggest tell has been how comfortable Val Nichushkin has looked. I think if he felt the sense that there was animosity and tension still lingering, there would be some discomfort, but he's looked right at home, back with his teammates on the ice and back on a power play unit. It just is where he belongs, and I think his comfort there is what is most telling, that they've, at least as a whole, embraced forgiveness. I'm sure there's individual feelings that might differ a little bit, but I think it's a pretty united front in terms of showing up with an open heart and embracing him back.
Well, and I think that's a great call out that you make there. That are there a couple guys in that room that, yeah, they've moved on, but it's still in the back of their head. And if it were to happen again, they'd feel a certain way. I don't doubt that for a second, but I'm with you. I think they've embraced forgiveness and said, hey, look, he's here with us. I know what Nathan McKinnon said today was, and maybe it wasn't that interesting, and I'm just overanalyzing because that's what we do. But he goes, someone asked about just having him back and doing the right things. And he goes, Val's our friend. We want to see him happy. We want to see him healthy. We want to see him doing well. And I thought him starting the answer with Val's our friend was just a nice reminder that, we all get so caught up in the money and the expectations and they can win and they're in a championship window. And that you forget, that's their buddy. That, I'm sure they were frustrated and pissed. Have you ever been mad at a friend, Megan?
Yes.
We've all been mad at our friends, but at the end of the day, you're like, it's my friend though. I don't want to be mad at them. That's why I'm mad, because it's no, why did you do that? Why did you do something that
put me in that place?
Right. And I think that's something that is important that people need to remember as we move into this new era of Val Nichushkin, assimilating back into that locker room, is at the end of the day, he's their friend and they want to see their friend be successful.
Absolutely. They did win a Stanley Cup together. And I think that it's hard. The bonds that are forged from that kind of accomplishment together are pretty deep set ones. Mm-hmm. And so I think there is a big closeness, especially with players like McKinnon to Nichushkin.
Yeah. What other thoughts do you have on Val? Anything else about not being able to talk to him today? Expectations for him tonight? Anything like that? Like you mentioned, he will be on the second power play unit. Found it interesting that they are keeping that top unit intact, even with all the reinforcements.
Yeah, I was asked that a lot in the post game with respect to the top line and the top power play unit, especially because the power play was so bad in the LA Kings game. With the reinforcements, do you see that change? And I thought that Bednar would keep the top line intact. I thought he might tinker with the top unit a little bit, like one guy in, one guy out kind of a thing. But it's been a really good power play, with exception to the LA game. It's still a top 3 in the league power play with the guys that have been on it. I'm sure there's some component of not wanting to disturb what's been working so well outside of the LA game and getting guys up to game speed a little bit more gradually. Maybe that's just extra minutes that he doesn't necessarily want to tack on in their first game back.
I found it interesting that Jared Bednar did say that Jonathan Drouin would not be skating on the top line, Val Nichushkin on the second line. I think a lot of it's what you said there at the end. We've also got to be realistic with the fact that Jonathan Drouin has now missed a month and a half, 5 weeks since playing in a game. Miles Wood was playing hurt and is now coming back after a couple weeks off. Val Nichushkin hasn't skated in an NHL game in over 6 months. So while I think Val has looked outstanding at practice, and it's been a funny reminder of oh yeah, this guy's a freak. This guy's a monster out on the ice. I think it's fair to say, cut those 3 players a little bit of slack there in the first 20 minutes, getting back up to speed. Maybe a little bit more sheltered, a little bit more limited minutes for them early. Jonathan Drouin also coming back in tonight, Megan. Played in the first game of the season, said that he felt okay to finish the game, but when he woke up the next morning, things didn't feel right. And someone asked, was your body not responding to treatment? Is that why it took so long? And he basically said, nope, this is just how long it took. No setbacks. This is just how long it took. What are they getting with Jonathan Drouin back tonight?
They're getting a real top 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I touched on it at the top, but Casey Mittelstadt, I think, has been not everything that he can be. He's been limited in his wingers. And I think that getting such a talented playmaker with such a high IQ too in Drouin alongside him, I'm really excited to see how those two work together tonight. And then, of course, the workhorse and defensively very powerful and responsible player that Val Nichushkin is just makes this a pretty dangerous line, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I think it's pretty ready to go, too. Because these guys have familiarity with each other, I don't expect too much of an adjustment period other than them getting their legs under them. But I think that this is something that can be good pretty instantly tonight. And so that just makes it a better scoring threat from the top of the lineup, so that hopefully it's not just the McKinnons and the Rantanens needing to do the heavy lifting, and that workload is shared a little bit more. And it all starts with a player like Jonathan Drouin being added back into the lineup.
I think you just used a really important word there, and it's workload. I think that's the biggest thing that they're getting tonight. And I didn't really think about that until you literally just used that word. And, you just said, Megan, like they're getting a top 6. That's what they're getting tonight. They're getting a real NHL top 6. And you would hope / imagine that having a top 6 of, we'll see how the lines end up actually falling tonight. Lehkonen, McKinnon, Rantanen, oh my gosh.
Drouin, Middlestat, Nichushkin.
Drouin fell out of my brain. I got to that first line and I was like, I have nothing. Middlestat, Nichushkin, Drouin. Having those 6 players as options in whatever configuration that you want to put them late in games, that's going to give you more bodies that you can roll out there and not be having to, hey, Nate, there's 10 minutes left in one goal game. Can you go play 8 of those? You're not going to have to do that tonight.
Yeah, we saw Kiviranta in overtime. Yes. What game was that?
Megan.
The Sammy Girard game. Yes. The Sammy G overtime winner. Let's
go back a step further. Just before that, when the Avs had their net pulled, TJ Tynan was the extra skater.
So I was going to bring up TJ Tynan in a different way too, just on the second unit. Like, we didn't want Logan O'Connor there, really?
Right.
And he moves the puck in the American League very well. I don't mean that as a slight against TJ Tynan. Oh, and he blocked a shot the other night with Chloe and I up in the press box. We were thinking of you. Like, he is tiny, but he is mighty. We love TJ Tynan. But anyways.
He's tiny and mighty until he tries to hit someone. I felt bad. That last game, you and I both looked at each other like, A for effort on that. I can't.
Just not always the most effective physical player.
Yes.
But yeah, he dove to block a shot and it was successful and it was really great, really gutsy.
Nice guy, works hard, loves the game.
Exactly. But anyways, they get a real second unit. And this is the workload conversation though too, is if he doesn't like that top unit again tonight, let's say the power play's still not rolling, he can spend a little bit more time with the second unit than he ordinarily would. He's usually not a guy to defer to the second unit all that much, but it's going to be made up of some really good players.
Yeah.
So if that's how he wants to handle that, a little bit of balance, I think he just has options.
Well, and not only can you go to the second unit, but if you're having issues like what you were having a couple nights ago, now you can swap Val Nichushkin in for Arturi Lehkonen, or you can put Drouin back in the bumper spot, instead of Middlestat. Like, you, not only is he going to have an option to play a much better second unit, he now has players he can pull from that second unit and plug in and swap and move guys around. I can't imagine what a relief this is for Jared Bednar to go into this lineup tonight with the roster card that he's got. Miles Wood, he's going to help the depth. For me, not to be a Debbie Downer on the whole guys coming back from injury conversation, Miles Wood is absolutely a big boost to the lineup. I want to see more from Miles Wood than what we were seeing before he went out. When he went out before, it was obvious he was playing through injury. He took the time away from the game. He's feeling better. I want to see a Miles Wood game tonight from Miles Wood.
Well, when I think of the fact that Logan O'Connor wasn't feeling well this morning and is still expected to play tonight, you can expect then that he's probably playing through a little bit of a bug, a little bit of an illness. On the penalty kill where he's been so good, it is such a great relief to have now Miles Wood added back into the mix. He can maybe take the reins there tonight if LOC isn't feeling really great. I think that's going to be really important. The penalty kill got better with Arturi Lehkonen returning, Nichushkin as well. It's going to make it even better. But that's where I see Miles Wood having opportunity to make an impact on this game tonight. I think there's other ways too. To your point, I think he wasn't playing great. He was obviously playing injured. I do want to see last season's Miles Wood, kind of what that Roaring 20s line was able to be. Unfortunately, no Ross Colton, of course. Right. But, I mean, even when we saw him play with Kiviranta in the Winnipeg series, there is a version of Miles Wood that we haven't really gotten to see yet this season, and that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah. We got a new member here. Is that Brooke? Brooke Elise.
Yay!
Welcome to the Gorilla Fam. All kinds of really exciting stuff. We've actually got a production meeting immediately following this show, and YouTube member content is going to be discussed. You'll also be getting stuff a little bit early. You'll also be getting some exclusive content as well. Welcome to the Gorilla Fam, Brooke. Thank you so much. What's the comment right above that? 4 days from last year, you must not be counting the new. No, the sign has not been updated yet. I will update it before the end of the show. We are back to 0. You mentioned the penalty kill. That's maybe getting the biggest boost of any one area on the roster. Tonight, suddenly your penalty killing forwards are Lehkonen, Nichushkin, O'Connor, Miles Wood. If you want to rotate a couple other guys in there, Parker Kelly, big penalty killer. Kibby Ronta killed a lot of penalties for this team. Again, you're at an area where your first options are NHL players, your second options are NHL players, your third options are NHL players before you start getting into any of those guys who are call-ups, things like that. And that's just not where we were literally one game ago. You can look anywhere on the roster, but I do think it's a great call-out, Megan. Penalty killing is maybe getting the single biggest boost of any of the different special teams, different units that'll be deployed.
I think so, because the power play obviously has been very good with the likes of McKinnon and Rantanen on it. Now it's just overwhelmed with how good it can be.
Right. An exciting change of pace for the Avs here tonight. Instead of guys constantly on a parade out of the lineup, you get a few guys back in, but you're not exclusively getting players back in. Alexander Georgiev has officially been listed as day to day. He did not skate this morning, Megan. We did see him around the facility. He looks like he's day to day. I know we joke about that all the time. The Avs list guys day to day, then we don't see him for a while. We saw Alexander Georgiev a couple times today. He looks like he's day to day. So I don't expect this to be anything long term. You got Justus Annunen going tonight. My guess is it was probably going to be Annunen either way, given how many starts in a row Georgie had gotten. So like you're not really missing anything for tonight, but you have to hope this isn't anything that goes on for more than just a couple days, because it seemed like Georgiev was starting to find a groove there.
Yeah, and you know that he likes a rhythm, and so he'd like to continue getting starts, and I hope this isn't something that keeps him out for very long ahead of the upcoming road trip. I hope that he gets in some games there and just has a little bit of time to recover ahead of it all.
Trent Miner was recalled by the Avalanche this morning. He's been playing very well with the Eagles so far this season, so he'll back up. Again, if you're the Avs, the hope is that you don't have to call on Trent Miner at any point tonight, but he will be backing up, not an e-bug situation. To start the game for the Avs, Megan, what else thoughts on tonight? Specifically, Avs Caps, Alex Ovechkin, 32 goals away from the record. He didn't skate at morning skate today, but he will be in the game tonight. Anything else on tonight?
Washington's a really different team this year, so they shouldn't underestimate the opponent. Jared Bednar said this morning that they're putting the puck in the back of the net a lot, and it's true. One of the worst goal-scoring teams last year, now among the best. In addition to Ovechkin, they're getting a lot of production throughout the lineup, and I think that's just something that the team needs to be careful of, because they've been so strong defensively lately that you don't want to see them let up and put Justus Annunen in net only to have him get lit up. I think that it's still important to continue building both goaltenders' confidence, and it's also an opportunity, though, for Justus Annunen to kind of make that goalie conversation even more intriguing.
Yeah.
Right? It's great to see what Georgiev has done with his starts lately, but Justus Annunen, you said this, has a say in it all, too. I want a really great Justus Annunen game.
Well, and it feels like Georgiev has started to like wrestle those reins back from him, stringing together a handful of good starts with a couple of very good starts mixed in there. And so tonight, I'm with you. I think it's Justus's opportunity to say, hey, we're both playing. We have a new issue. We're both playing well.
Yeah, we have a new issue.
Yeah.
Goalie controversy. We're both too good.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's what you want to see from Jussi Sandinen tonight, putting his hat back in the ring of being in that conversation to be getting more starts, because it does feel a little bit right now like we were settling back into Georgie, 6 out of 7, 7 out of 8 games. Then you'll throw Jussi, one every now and then. You'd like to see him keep getting back in a rhythm. So I think it's a great call. It's going to be an interesting night in net for the Avs as well. Chloe's already shaking her head at me. I never take for granted getting to watch players like Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin in person. And just for me, personally, I think watching him go on this goal record hunt is so much fun. Like, this is one of those things that is going to be, in 20 years, when people are talking about the greatness of Alex Ovechkin, to be able to be like, yeah, and we watched him in person when he was on the goal pursuit. I know Chloe's already giving me thumbs down through the glass. I'd love to see him put at least one in tonight to say that we got to see it while he was in the thick of the chase.
They have 66 more games after tonight. So I am good on that. I don't need to see it happen here. I can watch the Caps play a different team.
I want to see it happen here. And then I wouldn't mind seeing it in DC again over the weekend. But that aside, I do just think it's fun. Like I said, I will never take that for granted. I never got to see Wayne Gretzky play in person. I will never take for granted getting to watch Connor McDavid. Throw him into that.
Okay. I like the don't take it for granted conversation.
Mhm.
We get to exist on this hockey timeline and watch
Yes.
special players do special things. And I think it is important to just check in with yourself and reflect on that every once in a while, how lucky we are to see that. And so I don't need to see it in Ball Arena tonight specifically, but I do want to sit in and appreciate.
I frequently, Megan, have to remind myself to take in what we get to watch every single day with Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar. That is one that I do once every couple weeks. I have to be like, yo, appreciate this. Like, appreciate the fact that you're getting to watch Nathan McKinnon just out here work, during optional practice. Because, again, I was alive. I watched them on TV, Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux, but I never got to see them play in person. And so, yeah, I always try to stop and say, that's Alex Ovechkin. It's pretty cool that we're going to, especially because when he first came into the league, he would only come to Denver once every 3-4 seasons, depending on what division was traveling that year and all that stuff. So it is always fun when you get some of the all-time greats in the building. Looking forward to it tonight. I think it should be a fun game. I think the Avs are going to have a lot of jump. I think the building is going to be jumping Friday night. Everyone knows VAL is back. There's going to be a lot of energy in there. And I think the Caps are a fun team to watch right now as well. And all jokes aside, you can tell that they are juiced up by the Alex Ovechkin goal chase. Like, the fact that he's sitting at 10 goals and we're not even to American Thanksgiving yet, that is something that has that team a little bit revved up, as well as pushing back on the fact that there was a lot of people who thought they were done with the way that last season went for them. I think it's going to be a fun one tonight. I'm looking forward to watching this game.
Connor McMichael also has 10 goals, and I just thought that was really, really strange.
I agree with you.
And that's where I think the Washington Capitals are an intriguing team, because they have completely flipped the script on what they were in between an off season, and I'm excited for tonight as well.
Corey Massasak from the Denver Post, who used to cover the Washington Capitals for multiple seasons, he was telling me earlier in the week, and I heard him talking with folks today, like, I don't fully know if the Caps have gotten enough credit for the team they've built around the fringes. Like, they've maybe struggled to keep the like super high end talent the way that the Penguins did, or were able to for a long stretch and win Stanley Cups a decade apart and things like that. But the way that the Caps have built the team, like, there should be some GM of the year consideration over there if they can continue to play along the same lines that they have. Pierre-Luc Dubois is just there teeing up Ovechkin. I think they're getting really good goaltending. and they're not paying very much for at all. And then I think they're improved on defense. I think Chikrin is out right now, but like again, kind of a sneaky little middle pairing guy that they were able to add to bolster things. I just think that this is a more fun team maybe than people realize, because everyone had kind of written them off, given that they were one of the few teams in NHL history to make the playoffs with a negative goal differential last year.
Yeah. I always thought that Dylan Strome, like I didn't know that he could be a top line center specifically, but I always felt like the Chicago Blackhawks didn't make the right move in moving on from him. I think they undervalued him, and I think he's being valued very properly now in Washington and being rewarded for it.
Him and Kirby Dach.
Both.
I thought it was very odd that the Blackhawks were just fine to move on from, given that those were high. They spent high draft picks on centers, hard to find, and they were willing to just like, they're not good, and they've been good other places.
Yeah.
I just thought it was bizarre. Megan, what else you got for today? Ahead of tonight, we went over a lot of lineup stuff. And really, I mean, the story of the day for me is Val. And until we can hear from him tonight, I just think that that's kind of going to stay the story. Let me ask you this. What are you expecting to hear from Val tonight? For me personally, and maybe this is just me being pessimistic from like well, don't get your hopes up, then you won't be disappointed. I have a feeling that a lot of the conversation tonight is going to be about, well, I just want to talk about the game tonight. And let's move on. We've all moved on. Let's talk about, I'm happy to be back. Do you expect anything else from Val tonight? Like, do you think he's going to want to address much of it, or do you think it's going to be more of what we saw last year, where it's, let's turn the page?
I think it's going to be very canned, rehearsed, wanting to just move on. He repeated a lot of the same answers to different questions.
Yeah.
And so I imagine that will be the same too. Like, no matter how you try to attack's not the right word, but approach with different lines of question, you will probably not get a different answer. So it's not even this tactful, well, if I ask it in this way or ask it the right way, I don't know that we'll get much than what he intends to give. And I think it's going to be some shout out to the team and the organization in some way for the support that they've shown him, and just how he's feeling happy and healthy and excited to be back.
I agree with you. I think there are going to be some folks in the media who are going to press him, trying to get more out of him. But I think I do generally agree with you that I don't really think it's going to be a huge factor in how you ask the question, what you're driving at. I do think that Val is going to, stick with some pretty canned answers, and that's a good way of putting it. And, look, like our job is to try to provide context and try to be, I can't remember how you put it earlier, but the link between what happens in the locker room and fans who pay a lot of money and buy jerseys and buy tickets and season tickets and concessions and all that. We're trying to provide as much information to them who are paying the money to get into those buildings and pay to support players and teams and organizations. So while I do think there are going to be folks who are going to try to get more, I think it is going to be we're moving on type message. And that's okay. It is what it is. I will give Val, his English isn't very strong. He does struggle, maybe more than some others who are ESL, English second language guys. But I'm expecting him to be pretty canned, and is what it is.
I've heard his English is better than we could possibly know, but I obviously can't confirm it because all I know is what I've seen, and it's hard to know for sure.
Any other final thoughts? Chlo, you got anything to say back there today?
She texted me.
Oh, is that what you were laughing at?
It was about TJ Tynan. It says, TJ Ty parenthesis, neat but mighty nin. It's better if you could see it. I didn't say it very fun.
We click that last comment that came through there. Already tough expressing yourself in a second language you aren't confident in, even tougher talking about such a difficult topic. I doubt you'll hear anything not rehearsed. I do think that that's again, I'm not going to sit here and just bury the Abs for, or Val for not being available. Like I get it. And I think that that's a real thing right there. These are tough, nuanced questions. Like I know that there are people that are going to want to ask about Seattle and what happened and what was this, and can you tell us about that? What did the organization say? And I get it. I'm sure that there's going to be times where he doesn't fully understand a question. He doesn't know the right way to answer it, things like that. So I do think that's a fair point. I'll be honest, I was disappointed we didn't get to talk to him this morning.
I was disappointed because we were led to believe we would get him this morning. So I think it just makes you feel a little nervous. I'm sure he'll be made available tonight, but on account of being told that, but we were also told otherwise for today too. So
right.
I don't know. I guess I'm a little bummed too. A post-game setting is different from a morning skate. Both aren't the best for availability, just in terms of what players are expecting. But a post-game's even worse. It's even quick, and there's a little bit of expectation that you're only going to ask about the game. It's not really the setting to ask about other things. So it's just a little bit odd to get him in a post-game. And depending on the outcome of the game, it could really change the tone of that room.
Yep.
And I would have maybe preferred it be separate then from any game or any outcome.
Yeah.
But
so let's that next comment that just came in there, and I want to throw this to the chat a little bit. Honestly, I don't care if he talks or not. If the players, org, and coaches are good with him, so should we. Like stated earlier, we just got 2 elite wingers back. I want to hear from the chat really fast, because you guys are the fans that we were just talking about, that are paying money, that are watching the games, that are paying for the streaming service, paying for jerseys, buying beer and concessions. Do you guys care to hear from Val? Is it important to you? We're winding down the show here, so get your thoughts and we'll run through a few of them. But I just want to know, do the fans, do you guys need to hear from Val Nichushkin? Are you bummed you didn't get to hear from him this morning? Are you excited to hear from him tonight? Or is it, hey, if he goes out and plays well, that's all I care about? I don't care if Val talks or not. I don't think the media should press him. Fair. Again, it's a difficult topic. It's something sensitive. We're talking about addiction here. We're talking about a player that was gone for several months seeking help. I think it's fair for people to have that kind of reaction. Do we got another one in there? So Puckpedia says if Avs try to activate Landeskog this season, they would need to open up 4.9. Who goes to bring the captain? I'm not sure if that's fully accurate, so I'd have to research that a little bit. All right. What's the season ticket holder one here? Oh, okay. Hurricane Teabag. Yeah. I'm a season ticket holder. I would like to hear from Val. I'll settle for him kicking ass and playing well in front of the net. All right. Comments are coming in fast. Guys like Nate and Kale. Yep. Yeah. What was that one? Guys like Nate and Kale have enough capital built with me that if they are good, I am good. Okay. I think that's fair. We talked to both those guys this morning and they both said they were good. Yeah. What's the next one? From Chris Davis. His apology is what he puts on the ice. He can talk to me or us openly. I think that's a fair perspective as well. Yeah, let's just keep going through these here. I just kind of want him to prove he can still play to the level he did before he left, I guess. Hearing from him would be a bonus, but isn't something I need. What's next? I want him personally to be happy and good. Also, actions speak much louder than words, and we will never know what has been said to the people that matter. I get the sense here that these all seem fairly similar, right? In terms that like people just want to see him doing the right things. What do we got there from Vaguely? Yeah, right there. seeking help again one more time, and he's permanently KHL bound. Yes, and I think that's part of the reason why I'm wanting to hear from him. This is different than the other times he's come back. This is kind of a last shot thing, but I also agree with the comment right before that said actions speak louder than words. What about Brendan? Go down a little bit there, Brendan Jordan. Just let him play. If he plays well, hell yeah. If he doesn't, then we move on. So I'm getting the sense here that fans don't feel like they need to hear from him. And again, I do agree with the play the one right below that. Yeah, that one. I wish he would speak on it because especially nationally, I think his teammates are going to keep getting questions about his actions, which may be a bit, quote, unfair. I only want to hear honesty anyway. All right, so this is my one thing that I will say about this. I agree with this. I also agree that actions speak louder than words. And if he comes back and he does the right things and he plays hard and he stays on a straight line, then that's all that really matters. But I do agree with this comment of, don't make other players answer for this. Don't make teammates and Jared Bednar get up and have to answer questions about this continually. That's really my only true thing with it is I don't think it's fair to other players to have to answer these questions. I hate having to ask other players about this. I would have preferred to hear it from Val. Then we could have moved on. And this just feels like we're kind of kicking the can down the road from everyone being able to move on. But if the fans are in here saying, I don't need to hear from him, then all right. Then that's fair. And he can go out and perform, and that's enough of an answer, and I'm okay with that. If the people who are paying money are okay with that, then I'm fine. You look like you disagree a little bit.
I think there's an important distinction to be made. I think people are entitled to make that call, whether they want to hear from Val, need to hear from Val, or they don't, and they'd rather just see what he contributes to the team on ice. I think that's perfectly fair. But as credentialed media, we have an obligation to ask these questions. It's part of the job description in covering this team. We have to, or we're no good at our jobs. And so it puts us in this position of we kind of look, I don't know the word, we look annoying or aggressive in almost demanding to hear from Val, to speak with Val. We have to. And the people who do want to hear from him can tune into that interview, and people are still righteous if they don't need to hear it. There's not any magical words that he says that will change their view of him. Because I think the concern around him showing through his actions, showing through his play that he's in a better place is he was playing great hockey while all of this was happening.
Yeah.
And so to me, this is going to linger unless there's some kind of moment to try and put it to bed. And I think it's still going to linger even in the face of that, to be honest with you. He'll do a post-game availability tonight. People will still have concerns and questions around Val Nichushkin. Even if he's playing great hockey, there's that concern of, but will he abandon the team at the worst at the worst time again? And it's hard to know for sure. And I think one step into silencing or quieting that a little bit is to get in front of it and talk to media and give them something to kind of latch onto. Well, he addressed this. This is what he did. And that's why as fans, we have to try and keep that in the back of our mind. But I don't know. It's not that people are wrong for not needing to hear from him. And people are allowed to be critical of us for wanting to hear from him. I think that's fair too, to be like, leave the guy alone, let him deal with this internally with the organization and trust that it's being dealt with properly. And I think that's the key part in all of this is as media, we can't just blindly trust that the organization and the rehabilitation process and what he's endured through the program is just, it's good, it's hunky-dory, and we don't need to ask any questions. We do. We have to ask questions.
Yeah. Well, and can you scroll up a little bit? There was one from Vaguely talking about him apologizing up at the top. Yep, that one right there. Yes, I want him to apologize to his teammates and to Avalanche fans. This is something that I was told over the summer by someone who has a very good understanding of the situation. the accountability. That was the part that a lot of people felt was missing the first 2 times he went through this process. And we want to see him be accountable. Now, again, I imagine he's already had this conversation with the team, the org, the coaches, management, all of that. But I do think a little bit of accountability to the fans is what some people will be looking for. And play those top 2 comments right there. Jesse, I think you have your answer. The fans don't seem to care about hearing about it as much as you do. Quit asking. Let Val show by his performance. Again, fair. And I think, like I said, I think the fans are the fans and the team, things like that. Those are the ones who fans pay the money. Teammates are in the fight there with him. I think that's fair. What was the question down? Third time in the players assistance program, he's had his 3 strikes. Grant, one of the is a foul ball, but the next strike he is out. And again, Megan, going back to your point on that last comment, because again, I don't need to hear anything from Val to move on. Doesn't make any difference to me. But the argument about like let his play show, you do make a good point. His play wasn't the problem. Him performing out on the ice does not verify that he's in a better spot. He was maybe playing the best hockey of his career before this last one happened. So while I do agree with the sentiment of like, let him just go play and perform, you make a great point, Megan, of that does not mean that everything's all good to go because he's out there playing well.
There's a lot, there's a lot of assumption we could operate from, like, let the organization handle this internally. You know, he's getting care, he's getting support, but we don't have any of that confirmed. And that's where we have a job to do, to ask questions and to stay on it to some degree. Like, you don't obviously want to become overly invasive either, but that's part of covering a team. You care about the health and safety of the players too when you do it. And I know it seems invasive to want to know a little bit more of what goes on behind closed doors. You know, we don't need to know word for word conversations that Nichushkin's had with teammates, for example. I think it's still satisfactory to know that there's forgiveness there, but I don't even want to say we're in a tough spot. I love being in this position. This is a wonderful job. It comes with moments like this where you have to make those decisions.
And here's the one other thing that I will say. The last argument that I will make in favor of I'd like to hear from him is nobody pressed him the first 2 times. We said, hey, you said it's a personal issue. We'll leave you alone. We get it. Happened, that was the first time. Happened a second time. He's missing from the team for a couple months. Comes back. Nobody even asked him. So we've let him have his space. We've respected that these are personal issues. We've respected the fact that, hey, you don't want to talk about it? That's fine. It's a tough thing to talk about. This is the 3rd time. So for a 3rd time, are we supposed to just say, we'll respect it, we'll leave you alone? That's the only part for me where it gets tough. We've done what people have said there in the comments. Let the play speak for itself. Leave him alone and let him be held. If all he needs to do is address the team, that's what he's done. Okay. I guess that's what we got to do again.
I don't want to derail it more too, but in not talking to him, if that is what happened, it's not. We're going to talk to him tonight.
Yep.
It sets a bad precedent too. I think it's an access and a transparency issue because the Seattle thing was kind of this crash course in if a scandal of serious proportion happened, how would we cover it as media? And, with that one, there was a lot of confusion as to what happened. Yeah. And there was in the early ons worry that something more sinister had happened. And so that's where it is important for us to always ask questions, even if the answers seem obvious. And it sets a bad precedent if the organization shelters players to the point of us not being able to talk to them. If down the line there was another scandalous incident of greater proportion, this is the precedent that has been set. it doesn't bode well for us being able to have a relationship with the organization and get a little bit more answers, get a little bit more clarity, and that is our job.
Mm-hmm. And you know, the other part of this too, and why it's hard, I don't want to make any sweeping assumptions. You know, we don't know fully who is, you know, behind the driving of like, hey, I'd rather talk tonight. I'd rather, you know, so there's a level of it too that like I'm willing to give a benefit of the doubt on some stuff and say we don't know fully what's happening behind the scenes, and we don't know who's making some of these calls. But I think you're right, Megan. Like, in addition to everything that you just said, it also just leaves a door open for this to be constantly talked about and speculated on and all of that. Let us close the door and move on. To me, him, and we're going to see what he says tonight. There's a chance that all of this that we're talking about here gets put to bed tonight because he holds court and, you know, talks about it and is open and is all that stuff. And he just needed the rest of the day to, you know, build up the courage and, you know, get ready for it. So I don't know. I don't want to go too far without knowing what happens tonight. But to me, again, if we've talked a lot about addiction and confronting stuff and again, turning the page on this and not lingering on it and letting Val just be Val and be a part of the team. For me, I do think there's a small part of that that's okay. Let us close the door on it. Let the fans get some answers. Let us get some answers. And now we can close the door. Everyone feels good and we move on. I will again add the disclaimer that when you're talking about personal problems and addiction and things like that, Val Nichushkin owes me nothing. Me, Jesse Montano, he doesn't owe me anything. But I do think there were people within the organization he owed answers to and accountability to, and we have to trust that he did that behind closed doors. And I do think there is some trust building back up that he's got to do with the fan base. And those are my thoughts on it, in addition to everything that you said, Megan, that I think is spot on. I'm not even going to try to say anything else because I think you said it perfectly.
And I think it'll mean a lot to his teammates for him to step up, talk to media. To the earlier comment too, like hopefully this kind of puts to bed a lot of the questioning around Val so that his teammates aren't fielding those questions for several games to come. And I think just the optics of Val taking accountability, talking to media will go a long way, because I know that was a word that's been thrown around, you know, in terms of what the team needs from Val too. I think that will just add to other ways that he is showing accountability through his training and his hard work and what he's planning to bring to the ice as well.
I love it. Anything else, Megan? All right. I think it's going to be an exciting night around Ball Arena. I think it's going to be fun. And I'm anxious to hear from Val. That's going to do it, guys. We'll be, of course, back at the game tonight, bringing you guys everything post-game from Val Nichushkin and beyond as the Avs take on the Washington Capitals tonight. Alex Ovechkin hunting down Wayne Gretzky, bringing the show to Ball Arena. She's Meghan Angley. I'm Jesse Montano. We got a whole group of you guys back. I don't even know who's behind the photo. We got a whole team of people. Well, I can't see. There was like 4 people. Oh, okay. Jesse Montano, Meghan Angley, Guerrilla Sports Off Ice. We'll talk to you guys tonight after the game. Have a good one, everybody.